we need to talk about something that it seems like you can't really have a conversation about on the internet without kind of starting a war. And it's the whole idea of hard work and self-sacrifice and the grind, which I hate that word, and there's a reason I hate it, but the grind versus self-preservation, self-care, mental health, those kind of things. And it always seems like whenever this comes up, that grind mentality, someone comes back screaming with this, and there's just this battle. And I feel like if we were to have a mature conversation about it, you'd recognize that there's a lot more overlap than we give it credit for. This conversation came up recently in my stream with this. I'm sure you're wondering why I'm lying down if you haven't been in my streams or you don't follow me on Twitter. This kind of spurred the conversation. I really seriously injured my back, or I should say re-injured my back. Back in middle school, I was playing hockey and I took a slap shot, and when I did that, something popped. And since then, it's come back over and over, probably 8 times, each time a little bit more recent than the last, and each time a little bit worse than the last. And last week, I woke up and I couldn't stand up straight. And I couldn't stand up straight for about 5 or 6 days straight. And I finally went to the doctor or a physical therapist. And he basically told me that if I didn't get this taken care of, I wouldn't be able to stand up straight. I'd be the dad that couldn't stand up straight before my children even learned to walk. And I don't want to be that guy. So he told me that I'm not allowed to sit. I'm not allowed to be in a sitting position, regardless of my posture. If I'm going to sit, I need to have perfect posture, and I can only do so for 30 minutes at a time. And after that, I need to walk up and stand up and walk around for at least 30 minutes before I can sit back down again. And I found that out on Monday, right before the stream, which makes things difficult because streaming requires a lot of sitting down. I mean, when you're a streamer and you sit down for 5 to 6 hours at a time, and then you also make YouTube videos and you're editing sitting down for 12 hours at a time, it was a little bit overwhelming to hear. And I think it would have been perfectly fair of me to tell my viewers, hey, I've screwed up something in my body and I need to take time off and take care of it. And I think everyone would have understood that. But instead, I found a way to make it work and to still be on stream. But I did it in an interesting way, because I could have been the hard work, grind kind of guy that said, no, this is my job. I can't stop streaming or I'm going to lose all my progress. And I could have said, I'm going to sit down. I don't care what it does to me. I need to be the top on Twitch, and really screwed myself up. But instead, I decided to find a solution that worked for both issues, because I wasn't going to stop streaming, and my health is important to me. So I'm not going to sit down. And we rigged up this table. It's an IKEA cheap table. We threw some blankets on it to make it softer, put some pillows here for me to prop myself up, and made it the exact same height as my desk so I can game. And that's the solution. And that's, to me, that's what working hard is, or at least that's one aspect. But people don't like to hear that. People like to think that there's no middle ground there. I know a month or so ago, what has made me think a lot about this lately is Ashney Christ. I'm sure you guys are familiar. She's a stream coach. Ashney Christ tweeted something about, if you're not working, someone else is. If you want to make this work, you need to be willing to lose sleep, or something about that, blah, 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 which is similar to what I say. And I think most of the responses were positive, but there were a couple very, very angry people who tweeted back at her and said, this is incredibly irresponsible. You're promoting, what you're saying is going to hurt people. And it's going to cause, mental instability. And first of all, I think the hard part about that is there's a portion of that that's true. Where I think Ashney was 100% right. The part that makes this debate so difficult is that the angry people were also partially right. And that's the hard part about Twitter. You can't have this conversation on Twitter because that statement is true for 99% of the audience, but there's always that 1% outlier that just with a tweet with 280 characters, you can't put every little asterisk and say, okay, well, here's an exception, by the way. Don't do this if you're this person. Don't do this. You can't do that on Twitter. Instead, you have to make short blanket statements, and then it's up to the viewer to interpret it properly. And unfortunately, the viewers decided to get angry instead. But it's just interesting how people react to that in an internet career, when I feel like if this was any other kind of career that we're used to, like, for example, if LeBron was in an ad and maybe for Nike, I don't know, and said, said, while you were sleeping, I was shooting free throws. While you were watching TV, I was running laps, blah, blah, blah. People would see that and it'd be inspiring, and it'd be true, because that's what it takes to be good enough to be in the NBA. And the NBA has been around so long that we just kind of accept that. But if that were me, or if I saw that and I tried to do what any of these NBA players do, I would wreck my body because of my injury. And I recognize that. And LeBron doesn't have to say, by the way, if you have lower back issues, maybe this isn't for you, because it's kind of implied. We're adults, we're not morons. But when it comes to the internet, and I think it's because it's not really taken seriously as a competitive career, when it is, and the strain to grow on social media and content creation platforms is not physical strain, except for maybe being tired, but it's a mental strain. Being able to be creative all the time, being able to not let likes and retweets affect your personal mental state. And because it's more of a mental game than anything, and because of such a late progression this year and the last couple of years on mental health, I think people are quick to get offended when what the person's saying is true. You can't grow. It's such a competitive career. You can't grow on YouTube and on Twitch unless you're willing to work more than anyone else. And this conversation sparked on stream the other day when a troll came into the stream and just popped in and said, hey, follow me, while he was streaming, someone who'd never been in my stream before. And when we went in there, I shouldn't say we, when some viewers went in there to say, hey, that's not cool, he got really upset and kind of vented and said, what am I supposed to do? Like, I'm working as hard as I can. If I stream, I'm going to be at the bottom of 1,000 people. Why? This is the only way I can grow, is by popping into people. And look, I said that, and 8 people popped into my stream. I mean, 8 people that were upset with him, but 8 people popped in. And I kind of felt for the kid, because he thinks that the grind is the only way to grow. And that's why I hate the grind, because the grind just sounds like mindless beating at something until it finally works. And that's not what this career is. This career is about creativity and doing something that no one else has done. Not just doing the same thing more, but doing something that nobody else has done. And that's where this whole table bed situation comes in. And I think that's the middle ground that a lot of people are missing in this argument, is that, sure, you can go on the absolute grind and do what everybody else is doing, but do it 150% harder. And you can maybe grow that way, but you will kill yourself doing it. Or you can replace that hard work with mental work and creativity, coming up with new ideas and doing things that maybe no one's done before. And like, for example, it's this table. Like, rather than grinding it out and sitting in the chair, even though it was bad for my back, setting up a table, a gaming bed, we called it, and incorporating that into the content and taking it easy on my body where I needed the rest, and letting my creativity and my brain replace that grind. And that's, I think, an important distinction that people miss. And I think this is the area, I think this is the reason that Twitch is in the end going to really be the refiner's fire and show who is worthy of the success and who isn't, who's willing to make it and who's not. because Twitch has done some amazing things. Twitch has required a lot of people by requiring you to be so real and raw. It's not like a YouTube video. I know some of these YouTubers. I don't want to call anyone out, but I know some of these YouTubers who make these 10-minute videos every day, and they turn it on in front of the camera, and they're these sweet, charming, fun, outgoing people, and then you turn it off, and they're a wall. And because that's what it takes. And I'm not like, that's not a negative thing to say. Sure, I mean, I don't enjoy being around them, but like that's what it takes to grow on YouTube, is to turn it on for an accumulative 10 minutes and then rest between each shot. And that's not what Twitch is. When you're there and you're live for anywhere from 5 to 10 hours straight, unedited, live with a chat room, interacting with people who are asking you questions on the fly. Like, unless you're Dr. Disrespect and you have like a persona, you can't fake that. And so where there's that aspect that requires so much of viewers, there's also the issue of, it requires so much of streamers. There's also the other side that requires people to be smarter, where it looks to the viewers like we're just sitting there playing video games. And a viewer will watch someone and they'll say, well, look at that person. They're sitting there for 10 hours playing video games. If I sit there for 10 hours and play video games, I should make the same amount of money. I should have the same amount of viewers. What's not working about this? And with how Twitch is growing, that kind of streamer just isn't really going to make it anymore. It's turning more and more into a social media career. It's blowing up so fast that the only people that are going to grow anymore are the people who are also making creative content outside of Twitch and are using all the platforms to get as many eyeballs as possible. And they're using them properly, and they're learning to edit videos, and they're learning to, learning the YouTube algorithm and all the different things that it requires. Alongside of it, they recognize that there's so much more to it than just playing video games. And so I think the next generation of Twitch streamers is really going to show who's got it and who doesn't, because this career requires a lot of hard work. And Ashney was right when she tweeted that. If I took a week off or 2 weeks off, this injury is going to be plaguing me for a while. I'm going to be lying down like this until I can get a standing desk. If I let that injury take me out and I said, hey, I'm taking a couple weeks off to recover my injury, that'd be totally fine. Nobody would blame me for that, but it doesn't matter, because while I wasn't streaming, somebody else was. Somebody would be taking my viewers from me rather than me growing. It's like swimming upstream. When it's not like when you can't hit pause. Once you stop swimming, you get washed downstream. And if I'm not willing to get creative and work harder than everyone else and edit videos when I'm tired and not watch TV and instead make content when I feel like I need a break, somebody else will. This isn't a 9-to-5 job where as long as you show up, you get paid the same amount. If you don't do the work, someone else will. And frankly, as important as mental illness and mental wellness is, it's important that you recognize that the universe doesn't care what your setbacks are. The only thing that the universe and just the element of luck cares about at all is how hard you're working. And if that means you have a setback in the area, it doesn't mean you grind it out and you push into that area where you're weak. It means you get creative and you replace it with another strength that you have instead. But overall, your efforts need to be the same. Just because you need to let back on an area where you're weak doesn't mean you can't replace it with something else. And so I'm probably going to get a lot of angry comments for this, because I am absolutely siding with the people that say, if you want to grow, you have to work harder than everyone else, because you do. Regardless of what's politically correct or what people want to hear, you do. If I said you didn't, I'd be lying to you. And if you took that advice, you'd never succeed. But it's important that when you read things like tweets, things that are condensed into small snippets of what the person's trying to say. If I were to say, for example, You have to work harder than anyone else. You have to work when people are sleeping. You do. And if you have a situation where that's not possible, I can't put an asterisk there. It's not my responsibility to say, except for you. That's your responsibility to recognize that. If you feel like you need any help with this and you don't know where to turn, this is an important conversation to have. As long as we can do it maturely and respectfully, feel free to jump into my chat. Let's make it a conversation. Feel free to hit me up and I'll provide any insight that I have, and I'd love to hear yours as well. So anyway, I hope this was helpful, and I hope we get to keep talking about this in the future. And as always, happy streaming.